Hello guys and welcome back to Planet 40k Necrons. In today's video we're going to be doing a full unit review of the Necron Immortals from the Necrons Index. We're going to be going through that datasheet and of course giving our Planet 40k rating at the end of the video. Little plug here, if you've yet to get on our Discord you can do so. The link will be down in the description below. There's all sorts of different places where you can discuss your list, discuss your painting, discuss general tactics. And there's a lot of people in there that can actually help you out with just regular questions too. So get on board with our Discord. Maybe I'll see you there. Right, let's get on with our Immortals review for today. On the rear side of the data card, 70 points for 5, 140 points for 10. Used to be 16 points each, so that used to be 80 points for 5, 160 for 10. So they are actually cheaper this edition, which is good. Now they come with the Ghost Blaster and a close combat weapon, and you've got the option of swapping out the Ghost Blaster with the Tesla Carbine. That's kind of as it used to be. They are of course infantry and they are battle line, so you can take 6 of them or 6 units of them within a given list. Nice and straightforward. Let's flip the card over. Now the stats I believe are the same as they were in 9th edition. Of course we've got a couple of new stats here, but movement of 5 inches, they're pretty slow. Toughness 5, very nice. 3 plus armor save, also very nice. So that makes them more resilient in terms of the statistics compared to a Necron warrior. They've got a toughness 4 with a 4 plus armor. These guys toughness 5 with a 3 plus armor. They've only got 1 wound. The leadership is a 7 plus, and the objective control is nice because it is 2. So overall, pretty much the same as it was with 2 objective control. Now the ranged weapons, we've got the option here, the Ghost Blaster or the Tesla Carbine. Let's go through the Ghost Blaster first. That used to be the go-to for 9th edition. I personally preferred the Tesla Carbine anyway, but we'll compare them both now. So Ghost Blaster of course has lethal hits, because it is Ghost. We've lost rapid fire, however we've now just got a straight 2 attacks with it. 24-inch range, 3 plus is the Ballistic skill, strength 5, minus 1 AP and 1 damage. It used to be minus 2 AP, it's now minus 1. That's kind of standard, it's very normal, and yeah, it's a pretty decent weapon realistically. When you've got a unit of 10 of them, that's going to be 20 shots. When you're hitting on 3s, probably 2s realistically, because you will have a character. Most of our units now will have one of the characters within it. So with command protocols, with our index launch dynasty, the Awakened Dynasty, we're going to get a +1 to our hit rolls, so they're likely hitting on 2s. Strength 5 is pretty much all you need against infantry. Now there's also the ability that will relate to these weapons. We'll kind of get onto that in a moment, so there's no point me giving you these average stats because it will all change with the ability. As for the Tesla Carbine, it's got the assault keyword and sustain hits 2. That is as it was. Only 18-inch range, so it is slightly less range in terms of comparing it to the Blaster by 6 inches. 2 shots, Ballistic skill 3 plus, strength 5, no AP, 1 damage. So very similar in terms of the stats realistically. Both strength 5, instead of minus 1 AP you've got no AP. You've got less range, but you've got the sustain hits 2, and lethal hits isn't there anymore, but it's got assault, so you could, even though it's got less range, you could advance D6 and then still fire as normal. So that range isn't really that big of a deal. So for me personally, I do prefer the Tesla Carbine, and there's lots of synergy that you can do, but with both I suppose, but especially with the Tesla Carbine. We've then got the close combat weapon, which isn't that big of a deal, but we do get 2 attacks with it, so they can potentially fight. Weapon skill 3 plus, strength 4, no AP, 1 damage. Now there are synergies and combinations. I'm not going to go too deep into it in the synergy section, so I may as well say it here. You can use the Hungry Void stratagem for a +1 to the strength and a bit of AP. You can get Illuminazares for some more AP. You can make them fight pretty well, but that's not really their thing. That's not their go-to. They're mainly there for shooting. Let's move into the ability side of the data card. Of course, reanimation protocols. Nice. I mean, they've got 1 wound. They're 1 wound models, so you're going to be getting them up fairly easily, which isn't too bad at all. But they're implacable eradication, which is a really strong ability. So each time this model makes an attack, and that's any attack here, not just range attacks, there's melee as well. Reroll wound rolls of a 1. If the enemy target is within range of an objective marker, you get to reroll all the room rolls instead, which is pretty decent. I mean, that's going to save you from using the Protocol of Conquering Tyrant, which is our 1 CP stratagem to reroll room rolls. So we don't need that because we're going to effectively reroll room rolls of a 1 or all the room rolls, depending on what the target is. But if you're rerolling room rolls and we're strength 5, that's quite decent. I mean, if we're going up against toughness 4, we're wounded on 3s, rerolling. If we're going up against toughness 5, we're wounded on 4s, re-rolling. And there's further ways to boost this as well, which we will get onto in the synergy section. In fact, let's get onto the synergy section now. We'll talk about the battlefield role afterwards. I think it makes more sense to talk about synergy right now. So we spoke about the Tesla Carbines having the assault keyword. Now you could potentially also have the assault keyword on the Ghost Blasters if you wanted to with the Protocol of Sunstorm to give your weapon of assault. That's going to be 1 CP. Optionally, you could take a Royal Warden. He will also give assault as well as heavy. The heavy won't really matter at this moment in time with command protocols unless there's a -1 to hit penalty. But the assault keyword is really what we're talking about here, to be able to advance with the Gorse. Gorse. The real piece of synergy, the real shining light here, I believe, is Amrakir the Traveller. Now, he can only go with Immortals, but what he does is really good. So Lord of the Fury and Eternals is his ability. While this model is leading unit, each time a model in this unit makes an attack, add 1 to the wound roll. Now if we go back a step here, remembering that we are strength 5 and we are re-rolling wound rolls of a 1 or potentially all the wound rolls, and then we're now plussing 1 to the wound roll. So let me try and break that down. If we are going up against toughness 9, which is quite high, that's going to be normally you're wounding on a 5+ with our strength 5. Because of Amrakir the Traveller, we'll be wounding on a 4+, which is pretty good when we've got that many shots, depending on what weapon you've got. You're then re-rolling all the wound rolls of a 1, potentially all the wound rolls if they're on an objective. So combined, that's a real nice piece of synergy. I really like Amrakir the Traveller. He's a decent character for Immortals in my opinion. It makes them quite a shooty unit, even if the toughness is quite high. You've got other options here. You've got more movement shenanigans with the Chronomancer. You can move, well first of all you get the -1 to the hit roll for enemy units targeting us. That adds to our resiliency with toughness 5, 3+ armor and a -1 to hit. That's not too bad. But the Chronometron ability also allows us to move a further 5 inches after we've shot. So we can move, shoot, move, potentially move, advance, shoot, move, depending on if we've got the assault keyword on. So you can make a lot of ground with these guys, or you can dip into cover, dip onto an objective. There's lots of different options and different things you can do with a Chronomancer. Other ways of getting a -1 to the hit roll by not using a Chronomancer would be to use the enhancement Hypermaterial Ablator. So our unit's going to have stealth, basically a -1 to the hit rolls. They're also going to get the benefits of cover if you're being fired at from more than 12 inches away. So a +1 to our armor save if there's any AP on the weapon. Of course, if it's just no AP, you don't get a 2+ armor save. That's not how the game works this edition. So you could be sticking that on, say, a Necron Overlord or one of your Cryptex, I suppose. Speaking of Cryptex, you could use a Plasmancer, which I think is another cool option. Because, well, 2 abilities here. The Harbinger of Destruction. So you're going to be scoring critical hits on a 5+ rather than a 6+. So going back to the weaponry there, the Ghost Blasters were lethal hits on a 6+. That would be a 5+. And the Sustain Hits 2 ability with the Tesla Carbine, which I think is mad because we're going to be scoring that on a 5+, 2 additional hits for every hit. So basically every hit is 3 hits, but that'll be on a 5+ with 20 shots. That's a lot of shots there. So I kind of like that synergy. He's also got the Living Lightning ability to be throwing out mortal wounds. That's just going to add to the damage output of this unit. Illuminazaris, we kind of briefly mentioned him earlier when we were talking about the melee side of these Immortals. While he's within 3 inches of your Immortals, he can do his mechanical augmentation. So he's going to be improving the AP by 1 to our unit and worsening the AP by 1 for enemy units that are targeting our unit. So those Tesla Carbines can in fact go to -1 AP, and the Ghost Blasters will go to -2 AP. You've then got other options. We kind of already mentioned the Protocol of Hungry Void combined with Illuminazaris, so you can get AP, and in fact you do get more AP in fact with the effect if they do have a character within the unit. So if they're within engagement range and they've got a character in the unit, so they're going to get +1 to the strength, they're going to get a +1 to the AP because the character's in there. You're going to get another +1 to the AP because Illuminazaris is within 3 inches. So now you've got -2 AP with strength 5. That's not too bad at all. Other options, we're still going into the synergy. There's a lot of synergy here, isn't there, really? The Technomancer you could use. With that Rites of Reanimation ability, you're going to be giving the unit a Feel No Pain save of a 5+, always handy. We can also add the Cryptothralls as well, don't forget, when there's any Cryptex. We're adding Cryptothralls to the unit for the extra 2 models as bodyguards with the 4+ Feel No Pain save. You've got further stratagem boosts with the Protocol of Undying Legions to activate your reanimation protocols as soon as you lose a model. And Protocol of Vengeful Stars, if you lose a model in your opponent's shooting phase, you can shoot at that enemy unit with our Immortals. So there's lots of synergy. In fact, if it goes on further, you've got the Reanimator, of course, to add an additional D3 to your reanimation protocols roll. I mean, out of all the synergies that you've got for the Immortals, I personally think Amrakir the Traveller alongside a Plasmancer is probably the best option. You could swap out the Plasmancer for the Chronomancer if you want to do that move, shoot, move thing. but I quite like the Tesla option with the Plasmancer exploding 5s, not 6s. There's a lot of damage going out there, +1 to the wound roll with Amrakir the Traveller, re-rolling wound rolls of a 1, potentially all of them. That synergy is a mad combination, and it's not that expensive really either. That's a very solid unit that's going to do a lot of work. You could maybe take the way with the Crypto Trolls with this unit, but I like the unit overall. I think it's a decent unit. Let's talk about the battlefield role now. What we're doing with our Necron Immortals. First of all, you're assisting with shooting. I say assisting, it all depends on what cryptic you've got. If you've got a Plasmancer, it's not really an assist. You're just doing the work. But if you've got like a Technomancer or maybe even a Chronomancer, you're doing less work, so you are assisting with other units that are actually shooting at targets. Secondly, you've got the primary missions. You maybe want to be putting them on the backfields, on the back lines, or if you're going to be using them to sprint forward with your Chronomancer or with the Tesla weapons with Assault, you can also do that to get those primaries that are a bit further afield. And you've also got the secondary missions, of course, as well. There's plenty that they can do. Maybe they want to get to the centre of the battlefield and do area denial, cleanse, extend battle lines, overwhelming force. There's loads of secondaries that they can get involved with. They don't necessarily have to be the unit to get to the objective, but they can assist with removing units or removing models for other units to then get on. So they're a bit of they're a team player. They're a team player is how I would look at them. Let's get into the pros and cons for the Immortals. Starting with the pros, they're cheaper than Warriors. Warriors are 240 points for 20. Yes, you can get a unit of 10, but nobody really takes them in 10s unless you've got a Ghost Arc. But you don't need to do that, you just put the Hex mark in the Ghost Arc. So overall, they are cheaper than having the Warrior unit. They're easier to hide in terrain because there's only going to be 5 or 10 of them. So maybe you can get them completely behind terrain. Maybe you can, especially with the Chronomancer, like when you move out, shoot, move back in, you can't get targeted. They're going to require less support than the Warriors. You don't need the Ghost Arc, for example. You don't necessarily need the Crypto Trolls for this unit. You may not even need Amrakir the Traveller. Some people like to go bare bones with them. You don't necessarily need everything. You're re-rolling the wound rolls, potentially just one, potentially all of them. That's a really good ability. You've got weapon options. You're not just stuck with the weapon you've got, which is nice. You can go Tesla, you can go Gauss. Whereas the Warriors, yes, they've got options, but they're both very similar. One's just got a better range and more shots. But Tesla feels completely different because you've got exploding 6s versus lethal hits. You've got toughness 5 with a 3+ armor save, which is obviously very good compared to Necron Warriors. They've got the 4+ toughness, well, the toughness 4 and the 4+ armor save. They've got objective control 2, which is nice. As for the cons, there's less models in the Warriors, which means you're going to have a less battle footprint. You're not going to be taking over a couple of objectives with one single unit, taking over the battlefield, denying your opponent space. They're not going to be doing that. And they're not going to be reanimated as easily as Necron Warriors because they don't have their numbers as Legion or Ghost Arc and things like that. So it's harder to bring them back, but they don't go down as quick. So it's one of those, isn't it? They don't go down as quick. You don't need to bring them back as much. But if they do get targeted, they probably will go down. But let's get on to my Planet 40k rating for the Necron Immortals. Now, in my recent big tier list video, I believe I put them in B tier. Since doing the video, I've had a few more games with just Immortals and no Warriors within the list, and they performed pretty well, to be fair to you. I played them with Chronomancers. Now, I wish I did Plasmancers. I think I would have preferred Plasmancers, but in that game it was Amrakir in those games it was Amrakir and a Chronomancer. And yeah, they were removing, I think I was playing against demons and I was removing like skull cannons and things like these are toughness 9 chariot, no such thing as a chariot anymore. They're not vehicles, they're mounted. I think they're just mounted. They were removing models like that. I think we removed 2 of them with just 1 unit of Immortals. So they're actually okay in terms of damage. OC2, I think they're actually better than I gave them in the tier list. So I'm going to bump these up to a Planet 40k rating of 4-star. So guys, that is the end of the video today. Make sure you give me a thumbs up and subscribing if you are new. Thank you all for watching. See you in the next one.